Good morning. Anyway, I'm delighted that yesterday you seemed to find the little instructions on throat flutter tongue to be useful. Now, of course, I can only give you tiny little bits of information. These are just little things in these weird times that you might like to experiment. So they're by no means the whole story. But if it gets you on the journey, that's the most important thing. Now, what I didn't say yesterday was we're really looking at a 6-month project to get these muscles completely free. So don't expect miracles overnight, because they won't happen. It's a gradual process of retraining something that we don't normally use. And you'll get there, but it will be a slow process. The other thing I wanted to point out was the fact that, why is this throat flutter tongue ultimately superior? Of course, there are people who've got very successful rolling the tongue flutter tongues. But for me, as I get down into the bottom octave, it just disappears and eventually stops. And I think it's worth trying to find out what the reason for this is. And if you think about it, if you're doing the r, the rolling the tongue, flutter tongue, the tongue is very forward and it's very violent. Now, of course, what that's doing is we all know that as we go down into the bottom octave, the angle at which the air enters the blowing hole, the head joint, is actually needs to come down a little bit. And in the process of doing that, because this violence is taking place so close, in slow motion, the lips are doing this just because of that violence that the tongue is up to. And of course, if we want to focus the lips downwards, that's where the problem lies, because the lips are completely distressed like that. So that's something to watch out for when you're doing this. Now today, I thought rather than another flute tip, I'd just tell you a story from my times in the London Symphony Orchestra. And I think one of the great joys of being in an establishment like the London Symphony Orchestra or any of the other big orchestras is the travel that was involved with this. And to have a chance for someone to actually pay for the flight to New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Tokyo, Sydney, Vienna, Berlin, wherever, they get you there and then they pay you to play. I mean, this is a great bonus. And of course, I really feel travel, when it's possible, is such a beautiful thing to be engaged with. All the experiences, the smells, the food. I mean, the food in Japan, I adore. So on this occasion, we were in Vienna and we were playing in the Musikverein, which is a beautiful, beautiful concert hall. And this was many, many years ago in the time of Margaret Thatcher. And as we normally do, we got to Vienna, we went to the concert hall, we played a rehearsal, we then got a tiny bite to eat afterwards. And then after that, of course, groups within the orchestra went out for a meal and something to drink. And this concert was in Vienna was no exception. It was a very good concert. And of course, just the sheer fact of getting 88, 90, 100 people on one stage, all to come together at the same time and produce a sort of magical concert is quite a feat. Anyway, the concert had gone well. And we went out afterwards, a group of us, and eventually, of course, quite late at night by this time, we got back to the hotel. Now, there's always a problem when you arrive back at the hotel, because your upper body and your mind is focusing on going through the hotel entrance and making that significant turn left to the lifts or elevators to go up to your room and to sleep. But of course, invariably what happened on tour, you'd get to that threshold and your body would be swiveling to the left to go to the lifts. Unfortunately, your feet were moving around to the right to head off to the hotel bar. So I arrived in the hotel bar and there were several people drinking there. Now it turned out that at the same time we were there giving a concert, there was a big heads of state, big government heads of state gathering that was going on in Vienna. And the then Home Secretary was a gentleman named Douglas Hurd, who went to Eton School, very, very well-spoken gentleman. And in the hotel bar, a group of us met up with some of the translators and interpreters from this conference, the government conference that was also going on. And so, as happens, we started recounting stories, and they were very, very chuckled that day, because in a speech there'd been some very sort of sensitive issue that was being discussed globally. And Douglas Hurd had said the following saying. He said, "The spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak." And I love that. It's a great saying to say, how we really want to do it, but actually when push comes to shove, we find it very difficult. The spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. And apparently in the Russian quarters, this saying was initially translated as, "The vodka is excellent, but the beef is undercooked." Bye-bye.